They said I was too old to travel, too slow for layovers, too fragile for long walks, so they left me behind to feed their dog water, their plants, and wave goodbye from the porch of a house I paid off. But the next morning, I found something in the trash that changed everything for boarding passes, with my name missing. That was the moment I stopped being the caretaker and started being a man again. Before we continue, please like and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where in the world you are listening from today. It had rained the night before, just enough to bring out the scent of wet leaves and regret. I stood at the end of the driveway, their taillights shrinking in the mist. My hands still raised mid-wave long after they'd turned the corner. My son Greg had laughed as he loaded the luggage into the back of their SUV. His wife Caroline tossed me a list of reminders with the same tone she used when instructing the dog. Twice a day, Max likes his salmon treats. And please, Dad, double lock the doors. Athens isn't for everyone. You'll be more comfortable here. She said it as if she were doing me a kindness. Their daughters didn't even roll down the windows to say goodbye. The youngest was too busy filming herself on her phone. I just nodded and told them to have a good trip, standing there in the very spot where I once taught my son how to ride a bike. That night, I fed Max, washed the dishes they left behind, and poured myself a glass of scotch. Not to celebrate, just to remember I could. The house was quiet, sterile, nothing is left of my wife's warmth in the curtains or the hallway. Just smart lights, minimalist shelves, and a blinking Wi-Fi router that pulsed like a heartbeat I didn't recognize. I went to bed early, not out of fatigue, but because there was no reason to stay awake. They'd left me behind with their dog, their utilities, and a fridge full of pre-portioned meals, as if I were a housekeeper. Not their father, not the man who built this life for them from cracked hands and missed holidays, just the shadow of someone they used to need. The next morning, Max barked at the recycling truck. I went out to wheel the bin to the curb. That's when I saw it. A white envelope poking out from a torn paper bag, like a secret not meant to be found. I pulled it free. It was from the travel agency. 4 boarding passes are still inside. Departure 2 days ago. Destination Athens. Greg, Caroline, Emma, Lucy. My name wasn't there. Not even as a backup. Not even as an afterthought. I stood there holding that envelope like it was made of glass. I didn't feel anger. Not yet. Just a sudden hollow clarity. They never planned to include me. All the months of pretending, all the talks over dinner, the vague, we'll see, and maybe next time, it had all been decided before they even brought it up. I went inside and placed the passes on the kitchen table, sat down, looked at them like they were evidence. In a way they were. I made coffee, the kind I used to drink on the job site. Strong, no cream, no nonsense. Then I picked up the phone, not to call Greg, not to confront anyone. I called the travel agency. A young woman answered cheerfully. I gave her the reservation number printed on the envelope. I need to cancel these, I said. She hesitated. Sir, these were already used 2 days ago. Cancel the return flights. Another pause. Can I ask why? No. She clicked the keyboard. Done. You'll receive confirmation by email. I don't need it. I hung up. My hand was steady. That surprised me. I spent the rest of the day cleaning, not because the house was dirty, because I needed to reclaim something. I folded the laundry Caroline had left in the dryer, took out the trash, fed Max, then I opened the closet and found my old navy duffel, the one I hadn't used since Linda passed. Inside it were her travel tags still attached. I left them, let the memory stay. I packed lightly. 1 pair of slacks, a sweater, the blue button-down she always said brought out my eyes. My passport still valid. Still me. I checked my savings account more than enough. I had no debts. No one depends on me. At least not anymore. I booked a one-way ticket to Athens. Economy aisle. Didn't bother with insurance. The next call was to my neighbor Mel. Going somewhere? She asked. I paused. Just stepping out for a bit. Can you feed Max for a few days? Sure thing, Frank. Good for you. She didn't ask questions. That's why I asked her. That night, I sat on the same porch they had driven away from. Max is at my feet. The wind moved the chimes, Linda bought from a roadside stand in Santa Fe. I remember how she smiled when she hung them up. So the silence doesn't get too loud, she said. I never understood what she meant until now. I didn't leave a note. I didn't lock the top drawer of Greg's desk where he kept his mortgage papers. I just fed. Max patted his head and closed the door behind me. My cab came on time. The airport was bustling, chaotic in a way that reminded me I still existed. I moved through it like I belonged because I did. At security, a young agent looked at my ID. Traveling alone, sir, for now, he smiled. Not pity, just politeness. I appreciated that. On the plane, I sat next to a woman who didn't speak. We traded nods. That was enough. I stared out the window as the clouds rolled beneath us like a second Earth. I didn't watch a movie, didn't read. I just sat there with my hands folded, breathing the same air as 100 strangers, none of whom knew who I used to be. We landed in Athens, just past noon. The heat hit like a memory. I hadn't felt the sun like that in decades, not since the Navy. I took a taxi to a small pension near the Placa. Nothing fancy, clean sheets, a working fan. A woman at the desk called me sir, and asked for my name. Frank, I said. Frank Carter. She typed it in with care, handed me a key attached to a wooden tag. I walked up 2 flights, opened the door to my room, and sat on the edge of the bed. My duffel is beside me. My hands are on my knees. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just listened to the ceiling fan turning slowly, slicing the silence into manageable pieces. From the window, I could see families walking hand in hand, tourists taking selfies, children laughing. I thought of Emma and Lucy. The last time I held them on my shoulders, they said I was strong back then. Now I was just too old for long walks. I changed into the blue shirt, ran a hand through my hair. Still mostly there, still mine. I walked to the square, sat at a cafe, and ordered lamb and olives. The waiter smiled without rushing me. I ate slowly. No phone, no messages. No one is expecting updates. The world moved around me, and I didn't chase it. I just let it pass like a river I had finally stepped out of. I didn't know what I would do next. Not exactly, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel forgotten. I felt free, and that was a beginning. They say time softens the sharpest truths. I disagree. Sometimes time just buries them deeper, like rust under paint, or silence between conversations. I sat on that rooftop terrace in Athens, the sun warming the tiles beneath my chair, thinking about all the versions of me they no longer saw. Once I was the man who fixed their faucets, who paid their tuition, who drove across state lines to jumpstart their lives. Now I was the one they trusted to feed the dog, to check the mailbox, to vanish without noise. But I wasn't always this quiet. I just learned it got me further than yelling ever did. My wife Linda used to say I was made of steel, and Sunday mornings, a firm hand, a soft presence. She was the only person who ever asked what I wanted, not what I could provide. She died 7 years ago. Ovarian cancer. Slow, cruel. I was there every day. Bathed her when the nurses left. Held her hand through every scan, every thinning strand of hair. Every moment she asked, "Is this it?" And when it was, I buried her with a letter in her coat pocket. One she never read, one I never shared. Just my words, just mine. After that, the world got very loud, very fast. Greg said I needed a hobby. Caroline suggested volunteering at the community center. What they meant was, don't haunt the edges of our lives. So I adapted, learned how to take up less space, became the polite echo in their living room instead of the man who built it. I'd once been an electrician, 27 years in union work, the kind of job that stains your knuckles and teaches you the language of silence. I was good at it, not brilliant, not celebrated, just solid. I liked things that worked when they were supposed to. Machines didn't ask for much, just consistency, and I gave them that. My hands remember the weight of copper coils and the hum of energy. They also remember holding Greg when he had night terrors as a boy, how he'd cling to my shirt like it was the edge of the world, He doesn't remember that. He remembers the time I missed his science fair because of a job in Topeka. Funny how memory works, what it chooses to file, and what it chooses to burn. That morning in Athens, I walked through the Anapiotica district, all crooked stairways and whitewashed walls, cats sunbathed on low fences. A girl passed me wearing headphones, her voice raised in a song I didn't recognize. I liked that the world kept spinning, unaware of who I was or used to be. I stopped at a small stone chapel, didn't go in, just leaned on the railing, and looked at the city. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I hadn't turned it off. I just hadn't looked at it since I left. 3 missed calls, all Greg, 1 voicemail. I didn't listen. I deleted it without blinking, not out of spite, out of peace. Not every bridge needs to burn in flames. Some just need to sink quietly into the sea. Later I found a narrow street market, bought a handful of figs and a bottle of mineral water. The woman at the stall called me Papu and winked. Grandfather, a word I hadn't heard spoken without agenda in years. I liked the sound of it in her voice. Kind, not obligatory. I sat on a bench under a fig tree and watched people move, not rushing, just being. For once I didn't feel like someone waiting to be included. I was just part of the scenery, and somehow that felt more honest than being the man waiting at home for pictures he was never in. I thought back to that first trip we ever took as a family. Greg was 7. Linda had saved up for months stashing grocery coupons and skipping hair appointments so we could drive to Yellowstone. We packed everything into the old station wagon. No air conditioning. Greg whined for 2 hours, but when we reached the summit, he looked at the valley like it was the surface of another planet. "Did you make this?" he asked. I laughed so hard I couldn't answer. He remembers none of that. What he does remember is that I once told him to stop crying over a scraped knee. I told him to man up. I suppose I did. I thought I was teaching resilience. Maybe I was just passing on the silence I had inherited from my father. Maybe the wound was deeper than I ever knew. That evening, back at the pension, I wrote a postcard to someone who hadn't asked for one. My grandson Aiden, the younger of the 2, quieter, the one who used to draw me robots on printer paper and tape them to the fridge when they visited. He's 12 now, already forgetting,